We tell the stories you thought you'd forgotten or never dared to face. Stories of broken families, late reunions, unsent letters, and apologies that came years too late. Here you'll meet a single mother standing at her daughter's wedding, a father who left and returned when the child was grown, a child unsure whether they were born of love or silence. We don't tell stories through miracles. We tell them through honesty, empathy, and hearts that refuse to look away. If you believe that even the cracks can be where the light gets in, you're in the right place. Subscribe to hear what the heart has kept quiet for too long, finally spoken aloud. Now let us begin the story. Chicago, a winter evening. In the grand lobby of a luxurious hotel, soft jazz music played from a corner stage. Men in tuxedos, women in dazzling evening gowns. Everything mingled with the sparkle of crystal lights and the warm clinking of glasses. At table number 7, the most exclusive VIP table, sat a powerful man, Raymond Whitmore, a billionaire. His name engraved on dozens of skyscrapers in the city center. His face stern but composed, a silver watch on his wrist. Beside him sat his assistant, a fund director, and a few high-ranking politicians. Everything was perfect until the waitress approached. A young woman's slender frame, plain apron, gently stepped up to the table to pour water. Her hand trembled not from the cold, but from what she had just seen. When Raymond slightly raised his arm, pulling back his sleeve to pick up the knife, she saw it. A birthmark, a tiny crescent shape right on the left wrist. Exactly as her mother once described. She hadn't meant to speak, truly hadn't. But her lips moved before her mind could stop them. "Excuse me, my dad had a birthmark just like that, right there." The silver fork in Raymond's hand froze in midair. He turned to look at her. The young woman with eyes steady yet wounded. She didn't look away, didn't smile, just stood there as if she had said something that couldn't be taken back. Raymond blinked. Once. Then his gaze dropped to his own left wrist. He looked down, and he saw it. The tiny crescent-shaped birthmark, one he had long forgotten, existed. Silence fell over the table. The music still played. The laughter still echoed. But at table number 7, time had stopped. Raymond set the fork down. He spoke very softly. "I'm sorry." Maya, that was the girl's name, took a small step back. Her apron brushed the edge of the table. She still held the water jug. Her eyes never left his. "I didn't mean to bother you," she said quickly. "It's just, my mom used to say if one day you meet a man with a crescent-shaped birthmark on his left wrist, remember it, because my dad had it too." Her voice caught at the end of the sentence. Raymond didn't reply. His assistant whispered something in his ear, but he didn't hear. His eyes were fixed on Maya, not with anger, not with disdain, but with shock, as if he had just seen a ghost. She nodded, swallowed, then turned to walk away. She walked toward the kitchen, leaving behind curiosity, stares, whispers. Some people scoffed, some ignored, some watched as if it were a scene in a play. But Raymond could not look away. Because in that moment, the name she said, Maya, awakened another name. A name he hadn't dared speak in 21 years. Elise, William, Savannah, summer of 2001. The girl with sunset eyes and paint-stained hands. The one his family called a danger. The one he once loved but let slip away. Because he stayed silent. Because he lacked the courage. That girl had vanished without a word. And he, a wealthy man with everything, had never looked for her. Now the waitress who just poured his water carried that same birthmark, that same look, a living piece of memory stepping out of the past, not demanding, not blaming, just existing. Raymond turned his face away. He didn't eat dinner, didn't speak another word the entire evening. And in a corner of the kitchen, Maya stood frozen, listening to the manager scold her about professional conduct, about VIP guests. But her ears went numb. Everything faded. In her mind, only the eyes of that man remained. Not eyes of discomfort, but of recognition, as if a memory from the past had just come alive and refused to die again. She pulled out an old letter from the drawer. No address on the outside. Inside, her mother's handwriting, Elise, written to a man she was never sure had received it. If my daughter finds you, please be kind. Please be better than silence. Maya whispered, as if answering the past. I think I found him, Mom. In another part of the city, in a silent penthouse apartment, the lights from towering buildings reflected against the glass windows. Raymond Whitmore stood still by the window, the flickering city lights mirroring thoughts he hadn't yet formed. He hadn't had dinner, hadn't answered any calls, hadn't spoken a word since leaving the gala. All he had done was touch his wrist, the place where the birthmark was, the birthmark he hadn't noticed in 60 years, the one the young woman Maya had recognized in an instant. And then the name echoed in his mind like an old melody. Elise William, Savannah, Georgia, summer of 2001. The girl with hands always stained in oil paint. The girl who once sat painting him beneath the magnolia tree in her family's garden. The one who made him imagine a different life, a real life. But he hadn't chosen her. He chose silence. He chose reputation. He chose to be the obedient heir his father demanded. And then she left, without a word, without a trace. On the other side of the city, Maya sat beside an old wooden table. In her hands was the letter her mother wrote long ago. The paper had yellowed, the handwriting soft and shaky. No recipient address, no stamp, just a message that had never been sent. If my daughter finds you, please be kind, please be better than silence. Maya didn't cry. She didn't write anything more. She just stared at the small photo beside the mirror, a photo of her mother Elise at age 21, in the hospital, wearing a delivery gown, holding newborn Maya in her arms, her face tired but glowing. The next morning, Raymond arrived at his private office on the 38th floor of Whitmore Tower. Papers piled high, meetings postponed. The only thing on his mind was the name, Elise William. He made a call to an old contact, someone he used to hire for things others shouldn't know, a former FBI agent, now a private investigator, Theo Carter. I need confirmation, Raymond said. Her name is Elise William. She passed away 8 years ago. I need everything, address, history, hospital records, and her daughter. Theo paused for a second. Is this for legal reasons or moral ones, sir? Raymond didn't blink. No surveillance. I don't need tracking. I need the truth. Give me 48 hours, Theo replied. At the same time, Maya was researching him. His name was everywhere in the press. She read every article, every biography line, every quote. We built luxury on forgotten lands. Raymond Whitmore, 2010. That quote twisted her stomach. Forgotten lands. Was that her mother? Was it the small apartment in Southside with no deed? Was it the years her mother spent in the art studio, then moved to waiting tables when her health began to fail? She hadn't known who he was for 21 years. didn't know how he lived. Only one thing was clear: he wasn't there. She opened her laptop, created a new post. I met someone last night. He didn't recognize me, but I think he recognized something. A birthmark. And maybe a piece of memory. She paused typing, then continued. I don't want money. I don't want an inheritance. I want the truth. I'm the daughter of the woman he once loved and left behind. The title of the post was typed Lestas, the girl without a father, and a birthmark full of questions. She clicked Save Draft. Not publish, not yet. But that day was coming, because the silence was starting to become too loud to bear. Monday noon, Raymond received a thin folder. The one who handed it over was Theo Carter, the former FBI agent who kept his promise 48 hours. The file was placed on the desk. It wasn't heavy, but when Raymond laid his hand on it, it felt heavier than a block of stone. I wouldn't call this an investigation, Theo said softly. Just a reordering of truths you should have known long ago. Raymond nodded silently. When the office door closed behind Theo, he opened the folder. First page, death certificate, Elise William. Died in 2015, cervical cancer. Last known residence, Southside Chicago. Second page, a photo of Maya taken just a few days ago, stepping out of the subway station. One earbud and a sketchbook in hand, wind lightly blowing her hair, one shoulder tilted, but her stride steady. Uncannily like Elise. Third page, a kindergarten enrollment form, 2007. Name of student Maya Elise William. Father's name left blank. Raymond stopped. His finger hovered gently over that empty box. He swallowed hard. Suddenly the room felt smaller, quieter, colder. At that same moment, Maya quietly left the house. She didn't go to the gallery, didn't go to work. She went to the city library. She needed proof, not feelings. She needed a piece of memory she could physically touch. In the dusty archive floor, she sat at a microfilm reader flipping through old Savannah newspapers from 2001. 1 hour, 2, then 3. And finally, page 6, Savannah Times, July 2001. Whitmore Development announces Riverside Project black and white photo grainy. In the center was Raymond, much younger, black hair, sharp suit standing beside the mayor. At the far left of the image, barely noticeable Elise, paintbrush in hand, smudged apron, smiling gently among the crowd. One hand slightly raised like she was saying, I'm here. Maya zoomed in until the image nearly pixelated. Her heart pounded. Her mother had been there, not just a bystander, not just observing. She was the mural artist for the unveiling event. The small caption beneath, local artist Elise William contributed artistic design concepts for the Riverside district. And then, nothing more. No line saying she left. No one asked why she disappeared. No one mentioned that she had been erased from history before it could even be written. Maya reopened her draft post, this time without hesitation. She clicked publish, right then, that very night. The story spread quickly. It didn't reach major newspapers, but the artist community knew. The fatherless forums knew. Those who had grown up with the same kind of void, they knew. Raymond sat in silence, reading every line. The blog wasn't just pain, it was a demand. I don't want money. I don't want a title. I want to know, does the man who built an empire from so-called forgotten lands still remember the woman who once had paint on her hands? Raymond closed the laptop, didn't exhale, didn't blink. Something inside him cracked. "I need Maya Williams' contact," he said. "What are you going to do?" Sir Theo asked. Raymond paused for a few seconds, then quietly replied, "I don't expect her forgiveness. I just want to listen." Noy Maya's post spread faster than she expected. It wasn't the headline. It wasn't the hashtags. It was because it touched a place people rarely speak of, the emptiness inside a child who never got to call anyone dad. She didn't label herself a victim, didn't rant. She simply wrote with a voice of quiet strength and dignity. "I didn't grow up lacking material things. I grew up with something invisible missing, a voice that never called my name, an arm that never sheltered me from the rain, a father who was never there." And then the final line left readers silent. If you're reading this, Mr. Whitmore, I don't want your legacy. I want you to remember my mother. And if you can't, then at least try. He read every word. And with each line, the wall he had built around his heart for more than 2 decades cracked a little more. There was no reason left to stay silent. No honor more valuable than a truth that had never been acknowledged. He picked up the phone, typed in a number, hesitated for a second, then hit call. She didn't answer. A minute later, there was a voicemail. Maya opened her phone, pressed play. "Hello, Ms. William. This is Raymond Whitmore. I'd like to speak with you, in private at your convenience, if you'd allow it." His voice didn't tremble. It wasn't cold either. It was simply real. At last Maya spoke. He called. Mrs. Evans gave a slight nod, not turning around. "And what did you say?" "I haven't said anything yet." Silence for a moment. "Do you think he knew?" Maya asked. Mrs. Evans sighed. "I think some men never ask that question because they're afraid of the answer." Maya turned toward the window. A child biked past, laughing small but clear. Something inside Maya tightened. A breath. Then she called back. "Hello," his voice came through. "Mr. Whitmore?" Maya asked softly. "Yes, Maya. I got your message. Thank you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I know it's not easy, but would you be willing to meet just to talk?" Silence. Then Maya remembered the old letter her mother once wrote. "If you find him, don't hate him right away. Ask if he's still the same man." She took a long breath. "Tomorrow, 10 in the morning, I'll send you the cafe address." "Thank you," he replied, voice low and sincere. When Maya hung up, her hand trembled slightly, but inside, she felt just a bit lighter. She chose this cafe on purpose. It was where her mother once sat, once painted, once laughed. If she had to face the man who might be her father, she wanted to do it in a place filled with her mother's memory. Raymond arrived early, sat alone, no assistant, no files, no bodyguards. Just a man in a neat black coat, hands wrapped around a cup still steaming. When he saw Maya walk in, he stood up immediately. "Maya," he said gently. She nodded. "Mr. Whitmore." He gestured for her to sit. She kept her coat on, didn't smile, and for the first time, didn't speak first. She had always been the one to speak first all her life. Now it was his turn. Raymond cleared his throat lightly, then said, "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "I didn't do it for you," Maya replied, eyes fixed on him. He nodded, accepting that. "I read your blog, every word. Then you know why I'm here. You want answers." "No," Maya said firmly. "I deserve them." Raymond's grip tightened slightly around the cup, but he didn't argue. On the table were 2 cups of coffee, neither had been touched. One still steaming, the other long since gone cold. Maya sat upright, her coat still on. Raymond sat across from her, his hands resting on the table, but not too close. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was heavy, heavy like 21 years of never speaking. Finally, Raymond spoke. "I didn't know you existed." Maya didn't respond right away. She looked at him, waiting to see if he would continue. "I swear to you, until you said those words at the gala, I didn't know." "So, you never wondered?" she asked, her voice quiet but clear. Raymond swallowed hard. "I did, at first. In the few years after Elise left, I had thoughts. But then," he paused, "I didn't ask, and I didn't go looking." Maya looked at him for a long time. She didn't raise her voice, didn't accuse. She just said slowly, "Why?" Raymond looked down at his hands, then back up again. "My family. They saw Elise as a threat. They called her a dreamy artist, a fading color, a gold digger. I didn't believe that. I loved her, but I didn't have the courage." "Because of reputation?" Maya asked. "Because I was afraid," Raymond admitted. "Afraid of losing my place. Afraid of standing up to my father. Afraid of disappointing everyone. And I chose silence." Maya took a deep breath. "My mother never said your name. Until the day she died, all I knew was my father had a crescent-shaped birthmark on his wrist. That was it. Nothing more. No blame, no stories. Just a memory." Raymond stayed silent. "Because she didn't want me to hate you," Maya continued, her voice tightening. "Because she didn't want me to grow up carrying anger." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a photograph, black and white. She placed it on the table. A young woman stood by a riverbank, both hands resting on her pregnant belly, eyes looking straight at the camera, wind blowing her hair, the edge of her dress swaying, a smile not quite happy, but full of life. Raymond looked at the photo, his hands trembling. I have that," he said softly. "Elise sent it to me, but I never opened the envelope. I kept it in a drawer for 2 decades. Maya gave a small laugh, not bitter, but deeply pained. "My mother gave you a chance, and you chose not to know." Raymond nodded. He didn't make excuses. "I chose not to know, because I was afraid that if I knew, I'd have to do something, and I wasn't ready. I was a coward. I left your mother alone with a child I didn't have the courage to believe was real." Maya took a deep breath, eyes locking with his. "Did you love her?" Raymond looked up. He didn't look away. "I loved her, very much. So much I didn't have the words to describe it, but not enough to fight for it." "And what about me?" Maya asked, voice soft. "If you had known, would you have wanted to keep me?" The question dropped between them like a pebble in a still lake. Raymond didn't answer immediately. He reached into his coat and took out a small photo pressed in a stiff folder. He placed it beside Maya's picture. The same photo, the same woman, Elise in her final month of pregnancy. "I received this photo in 2002. Elise sent it by mail. I didn't dare open it. I didn't have the strength. Until last week, I saw it for the first time." Maya placed her hand over her chest. "You didn't see me grow up, didn't teach me how to ride a bike, didn't attend parent-teacher meetings, didn't hear me talk about school. You weren't there when my mother died, not once." Her voice trembled, but her gaze stayed steady. Raymond nodded. He bit his lip. "I will carry that with me for the rest of my life. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I only hope you'll let me stop running from it." Silence. Then Maya bent over her bag and pulled out a carefully folded piece of paper. She opened it. It was a drawing. Rough sketches, faded lines, 3 people, a mother, a little girl, and a father. On each of their wrists was a crescent-shaped birthmark. "I drew this when I was 10, Maya said. I didn't know what you looked like, so I imagined." Raymond took the drawing in his hand. His fingers trembled. "You gave me more trust than I deserved." Maya stood up and slung her bag over her shoulder. "This isn't kindness, it's memory." He looked up at her. "Will you let me see you again?" Maya was quiet for a moment, then said, "I don't need a father. I've lived 21 years without one. But if you want to become someone I can respect, that will matter more than blood ever could." She turned and walked away. Raymond remained alone. In his hands a child's drawing. On the table 2 untouched cups of coffee. Inside him a promise. He didn't yet dare speak aloud. Raymond had been sitting there for hours. No one called him. No one walked in. There were no meetings left. No questions more urgent than the one he now had to face himself. In his hands was the drawing Maya made at age 10, childlike strokes, but full of hope. 3 people, 3 wrists with matching crescent-shaped birthmarks. An imagined family of which one part had always been real. He gently placed his hand on the paper. His fingers trembled as if for the first time he was touching something that truly mattered. Elise had once sent him letters, 3 of them, from Savannah, from her hospital room, from the place where she spent her final days alone. All of them Raymond had tucked away, never opened. Not because he didn't see them, but because he had chosen not to read. But now everything was different. Now he understood. Silence was no longer dignity. It was escape. Raymond opened the first letter. Elise's voice came alive through her written words, soft, warm, but full of quiet sorrow. "Raymond, if you're reading this, maybe you've finally stopped pretending that the past doesn't matter. I'm not angry at you anymore. I only feel regret. Regret that we didn't have the courage at the same time. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I was afraid your last name would crush our child's future. I didn't want her to grow up believing she was the product of a mistake. She deserves to know she was born from love, even if that love wasn't strong enough to conquer silence." Raymond bowed his head over the letter. His eyes turned red. His hand clenched lightly. For the first time in years, tears were no longer unfamiliar. Later that evening, Maya spoke. "He brought a picture of my mother when she was pregnant." Mrs. Evans paused her hands, turned around, and he kept it for 21 years, never opened it, never looked, until last week. Mrs. Evans set the knife down, spoke slowly. "Guilt is a strange thing. It stays quiet for years. But when it finally speaks, it never whispers. I want to revise my will." There was a pause on the other end of the call. "Are we talking about percentages or a new name?" Both Raymond replied. "Her name is Maya William." "This is a big step, sir." Raymond looked out the window, where the night sky was scattered with city lights. "I don't know what's coming, but this is the first step I'm no longer afraid of. And if something has terrified me for 20 years, then maybe it's the very thing worth doing." An apology letter never sent, a child's drawing of an imagined family, and a memory awakened by remorse. Raymond sat still, his hand resting on the items before him. Elise once tried to speak. She sent letters. I was the one who didn't listen. But he would not repeat that mistake with Maya. Maya opened her email. One new message from Raymond. No subject line. Just a few short lines. "You owe me nothing, but I owe you and your mother a public truth. 3 days from now, the Whitmore Foundation will hold its annual press conference. Not for promotion, but to say what's right. I will speak of Elise, and, if you allow me, of you as well. Maya finished reading and quietly closed her laptop. She didn't know how she would respond. Wasn't sure she wanted the world to know who she was, but she knew one thing. If Raymond had the courage to stand up to say the name of the woman a whole family once erased, then maybe, just maybe, she no longer had to carry the weight of being forgotten, alone. That morning, no one in the media was prepared for what was about to happen. They arrived expecting the annual press conference from the Whitmore Foundation, just like every year. A new grant, a new project, a few photos with perfect handshakes. No one anticipated that the real message wouldn't be in the PowerPoint slides, but in a heart that had been silent for far too long. Raymond stood backstage, neatly dressed in a black coat. A staff assistant approached, handing him the pre-written speech. "Would you like to review it one last time, sir?" she asked. Raymond looked at the manuscript, folded it in half, then folded it again. Finally, he tucked it into his inner coat pocket. "I won't be reading this." The assistant gave a small nod, asking nothing further. She had worked with him long enough to understand. When Raymond Whitmore folded a speech, it meant he was about to speak the truth. "Maya's not in the front row," she said softly. Raymond nodded. "That's all right. This isn't about who's watching. It's about who's been forgotten." He stepped onto the stage. Under the white lights, camera lenses turned, shutters clicked. No slides, no background logo. Just a microphone and anticipation. He stood still, looked around. "Good morning. Today on the agenda, I was meant to speak to you about investment growth, community expansion, and a new building project currently in development." He paused, breathed slowly. "But I won't be doing that, because there's something else that needs to be said. Something I should have said 21 years ago." The room shifted subtly. A few eyebrows raised. A few pens began scribbling notes. No one expected that the story would begin with a name. Raymond looked directly into the audience. "In 2001, I loved a woman named Elise William. She was a painter, brave, creative, and black." The entire room seemed to stop breathing. "At the time, I was set to inherit the family empire. And my family did not accept her. I didn't fight back. I stayed silent, and I let her go." Raymond took a deep breath. "I didn't know when she left. She was pregnant. She didn't tell me. Maybe she didn't believe I would stay. And I don't blame her." The hall fell utterly silent. No more typing. Only his voice steady, pained but unforced. 21 years later, her daughter found me. Not through a lawyer, not with anger, just with a single sentence. "Excuse me, my father has a birthmark right there." Raymond raised his left hand and pointed to his wrist. A crescent-shaped birthmark. The only witness left to what he had once tried to forget. He stepped back slightly, voice softening but no less resolute. "I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm sharing it because silence has a price. Because love shouldn't be something we hide. Because indifference can be a form of betrayal." Still, no one in the room spoke. Raymond gave a quiet nod. "I failed two people. A woman I loved and a child I was too afraid to believe was mine. I can't undo that, but for the rest of my life, I will live to acknowledge them." He stepped away from the mic. No questions, no press releases, no comments to reporters. He was done speaking, and for the first time in his life, it was a truth that needed no decoration, In a simple room, Maya and Mrs. Evans sat in front of a laptop. The live stream was blurry, low resolution, but his voice came through clearly. Maya sat motionless. She didn't flinch when he said Elise's name. She didn't blink when he called himself a coward. Only when he raised his hand and pointed to his left wrist did she finally exhale. Mrs. Evans stood behind her, gently said, "He did it." Maya nodded, but her hand still gripped the edge of the chair, because a part of her had never believed this day would come. The day a man who once chose silence finally chose to speak. John Noy, Savannah, the city where everything began and everything was left behind. Maya hadn't returned since her mother's funeral 8 years ago. But this time, she wasn't alone. Raymond walked beside her. No bodyguards, no private driver. Just an old man walking beside the daughter he'd never held on a tree-lined path through the landscape of memory. They passed the old neighborhood wooden porches, rusted swing chairs, the faint scent of magnolia in the breeze. Neither said much. Each step felt like they were walking through the dust of the past. Raymond didn't ask Maya how she felt, and Maya didn't press him to explain. Some silences weren't about avoidance anymore. They were about respect. Hillrest Cemetery. Late afternoon. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, casting gentle specks onto the gravel path. "Mom used to bring me here," Maya said, walking slowly past rows of headstones. "But not just to visit my grandmother's grave. She painted this place, the light, the stone angels, even how the sun fell on each headstone." Raymond gave a soft smile, not from joy, but because he was beginning to understand Elise. Little by little, through her daughter, she always saw what others missed, he said quietly. She saw me, even before I could see myself. They stopped before a simple gravestone leaning slightly forward, moss creeping at its edges. Elise A. William, 1979 to 2015. She painted silence into color. Maya knelt. Her hand gently brushed the worn engraving. She didn't cry. Not anymore. The pain had softened into something quiet and tender, like the woman resting beneath this earth. Raymond stepped forward, placing a bouquet of white camellias beside the grave, Elise's favorite, once pressed into a locket. He stood silently, then pulled from his coat pocket a small, velvet-wrapped item. He held it out to Maya. "I didn't know when the right time would be, but I think this is the place." Maya opened it, an oval silver locket aged by the years. She clicked it open. Left side, a photo of Elise at 20 beaming beside an easel. Right side, a single dried camellia petal pressed long ago. "She gave you this?" Maya asked. Raymond nodded. "After our last night together. I never wore it, never opened it until last week." Maya clutched the necklace gently. And Mom used to say, giving away a piece of yourself is easier than giving all of it, because sometimes you don't know what, if anything, you'll get in return. "She gave me more than I ever deserved," Raymond said, eyes glistening, "and more than I ever acknowledged." They stood together at the grave, evening settling in the wind, rustling through the magnolia branches like whispers without sound. She never wanted to be a burden, Maya said. Even when she was sick, she didn't want anyone to carry the weight. She left recordings just in case. I still have them. Don't play them often, but some days just hearing her voice is enough. Raymond looked at Maya. He didn't say, "I wish I had been there." He knew absence cannot be undone with wishes. "I wasn't there," Maya said, not in anger, but in truth. "But at least now you're not hiding." Raymond nodded. "I'm not." Maya leaned forward and gently placed the locket beside the bouquet. "Mom would like this," she said. "Not because it's perfect, but because it's real." They left the cemetery as the last golden light faded from the ground. Raymond spoke almost to himself. "When I was young, my father said, 'Emotion is weakness, dignity is silence.'" Maya turned to him. "And you believed that?" "I used to, but your mother proved the opposite. Every stroke of her brush was an act of speaking." Maya gave a quiet nod. "And you don't have to become your father." Raymond smiled for the first time, a genuine smile. "I know, I'm trying to be different, bit by bit." They paused beneath the ancient magnolia near the cemetery gate. Raymond pulled out a handwritten letter and offered it to Maya. "I wrote this before I left Chicago. It's not legal, not a will, just what's true." Maya opened it, his handwriting neat, deliberate, like he took time with every word. "Maya, I missed the day you were born, missed your first steps, missed midnight fevers drawings on the fridge, tearful school pickups. I missed it all. But if you'll allow me, I want to be there for what's to come. Not out of duty, but because I believe I can bring something honest." Maya folded the letter, tucked it into her coat, looked up, eyes bright but calm. "Want to get coffee? There's a place nearby Mom used to love. The peach tart there tastes exactly like the one she used to make." Raymond nodded, eyes misty but smiling. "Lead the way." The cafe door gave a soft creak as Maya and Raymond stepped inside. She chose the table by the window, the one her mother had always loved the most. Back then, Elise used to sit there sipping tea, sketching, listening to the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the whispered stories of passing strangers. Now her daughter sat in that very same spot, and across from her sat the man who should have been there years ago. A plate of warm peach tart steamed gently between them, 2 cups of hot tea. The window fogged up from the heat. Outside, the rain tapped gently like a steady breath. Raymond took a bite slowly, nodded slightly. "Your mother had good taste," he murmured. "She usually did," Maya replied, voice low. Then she added without looking at him, except when she believed in silence. Raymond set his spoon down. "No excuses, just acknowledgement. She deserved more than I ever gave her." Maya looked at him. "Then why didn't you keep her?" Raymond didn't rush his answer. He turned his cup slowly in his hands. "I was raised to believe the world belonged to people like me if I didn't stir it up. My father always said, 'Love her and you'll lose everything. The estate, the reputation, the name.' And you believed that." Maya asked, not accusing, just seeking the truth. "I did," Raymond admitted. "But now I understand. What I lost by choosing silence was far greater than anything they warned me about." Silence settled again. Maya lifted her cup, looking out at the rain beyond the fogged glass. Her face had lost its sharpness, not hardened, just tired. But within that fatigue was space for truth. "I used to imagine you showing up at a parent-teacher meeting," she said, like recalling a dream that never came true. "Just once, no words, no wealth, just standing there. So I'd know you existed." Raymond tightened his grip on the cup, but he didn't interrupt. Maya continued, "I don't need your regret. I need you to carry it, so you won't do this to someone else." Raymond nodded. "I'm trying." "So am I," Maya said, looking him straight in the eye. "I'm trying to allow you to be here, but it's not easy." Outside, the rain grew heavier. The cafe stayed quiet. Maya stood up and pulled on her coat. "Will you walk me to the station?" Of course, Raymond stood right away, grabbing an umbrella from the rack. They stepped out into the street. The rain fell soft as memory. The wind wasn't cold, just wet enough to remind them that today was real. They waited under the awning of the small train station. A train was about to depart. Only the sound of rain and breath remained. Maya turned to face him. This doesn't undo the past. I know, there are things we don't get back. I know, Raymond repeated this time, with eyes full of understanding. But it's something Maya said quietly. Something that begins. She hesitated, then added, my mom used to say, loving someone isn't about being there when it's easy. It's about staying when it hurts the most. Raymond didn't respond right away. He just looked at her. I'm not leaving again, he said. A moment of silence. Then Maya stepped forward. She hugged him. Not long, not tightly, but it was real. A hug of acceptance. Not of a father, but of a man learning how to become one. As they pulled apart, Maya said, next year, same day, under the magnolia tree. Raymond smiled. I'll be there, even if you're not. Maya stepped onto the train. She didn't look back. Raymond stood alone on the platform umbrella, loose at his side. The rain no longer made him cold. It felt like permission. Permission to feel, to regret, to begin. 1 year later, Maya sat in her small studio, bathed in soft golden light, an easel propped near the window. Portraits lined the walls, one still unfinished, its strokes rough, but vivid, a middle-aged man looking up toward the viewer. She dipped her brush into pale blue, drew a soft line along the shirt collar and the sainting, then paused, stared at it for a long while. The face in the painting remained incomplete, because maybe some things aren't meant to be perfect, only real. An email arrived, subject under the magnolia tree. Maya skimmed it. I'll bring peach tart and tea just like I promised. I'm not sure you'll come, but I'll be there as anything worth showing up for should be. Maya smiled softly. She didn't reply right away. She turned to the portrait, lifted it from the easel. She didn't need to finish it here. She knew a better place, the right place to complete it. Raymond sat under the magnolia tree in Hillrest Cemetery. On the grass, a blanket spread out. Peach tart, 2 cups of tea, and a photo album resting nearby. A breeze moved gently through the branches, white petals drifting down like snow. He had arrived early, still unsure if Maya would come, but he had brought everything, the tart, the apology, and the patience. Raymond opened the photo album. The first page, a portrait of Elise recently reprinted. The second, a handwritten letter Maya once wrote to her mother, unstamped, never sent. Next page, a print of the unfinished portrait taken from a photo Maya had once quietly emailed, unsigned. He read every line, touched every page. Maya approached quiet as breath. No greeting, no need for names. Raymond looked up and smiled, as if he'd known all along she would come. You kept your word, she said, sitting beside him. The tart's still warm, he replied. They ate in silence, not for lack of things to say, but because sometimes silence is the most beautiful language between two people who once lost each other. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a framed canvas, the same unfinished portrait. I didn't complete it, she said, because maybe you're the one who should paint the rest. Raymond looked at the frame. His eyes shimmered, not because the portrait looked like him, but because it proved he had existed in someone's eyes. I used to think family was something given, he said. Bloodline, last name's legacy. But now I know family is who we choose. and who dares to give us one more chance. A small gallery show a few months later, viewers stood quietly surrounded by emotive portraits. In the center of the room, a large painting Elise standing in sunlight, her hands resting on her pregnant belly. Behind her, two figures, one tall, one small, not touching hands, but moving toward each other. The title, The Space Between. Maya stood beside Raymond, both of them watching the crowd in silence. No one introduced anyone as anything. No one said, "This is my father." No label read, "Daughter of the Air." Just two people who had learned how to show up and how to stay. Maya's voice narration. Mom used to say, to love someone isn't to expect them to be perfect, just to be real enough. I think, in the end, she was right. My father wasn't a hero, but he was the man who dared to arrive late and dared to stay. And sometimes, that's what we need most. Beneath the magnolia tree, a photo was left on a stone. Elise, Maya, and Raymond stitched together from 3 different images. Yet, somehow, it looked as though they'd always been there together. Rain began to fall softly, but this time, no one left. Closing thoughts. A story that was never too late. This isn't just a story about a father who missed out. Nor is it solely about the pain of a child growing up in absence. It's the journey of 3 people once separated by silence, prejudice, and fear, who ultimately found each other again through courage and compassion. Elise, the woman who painted color out of pain. Raymond, the father who dared to return from hiding. Maya, the daughter who grew up between 2 worlds that had never walked side by side. Family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes it's something we choose again, even if it's late, even if it's messy, even if it starts with nothing more than the words, "I'm your daughter." If you've ever felt left behind, if you've ever gone unnamed, if you're on a journey to reconnect with something or someone lost, remember this. Your presence today can still help heal what was broken yesterday. Have you ever experienced a reunion that came too late to feel easy, but just in time to matter? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the stories that make your heart go still, then beat again stronger than ever.